Hi folks, and welcome to the Meaningful Money Podcast. This is Season 15, Episode 16. This is the podcast dedicated to helping you put your finances in order. My name is Pete Matthew, and I'm going to share with you everything you need to know and everything you need to do to secure your financial future. I'm here to help you make sense of money. Here we go. Once again, great to have you with me. Thank you so much for joining me. It's time to draw this season officially to a close by answering some of the questions that you've asked along the way. We shouldn't be too long, okay? I had quite a few questions, but not as many in previous seasons, so that either means that I've explained myself really clearly, or that you just don't care. But I think given the amount of other feedback that I've had, I'm sure it's not the latter. It's just that, you're happy with how it's all been explained. Maybe taking an extra few weeks has been helpful, whatever. But good to have you here today. We're just going to answer a few questions to round things off. After that, obviously, talk a little bit about what's coming up over the next few weeks, not least Christmas. Yay! Read a review out, usual drill. But before any of that, remember this podcast continues to be brought to you with the help of my friends at 7 Investment Management. Been helping me out here for ages, since the spring of 2011, which is incredible by any standards. Signed up for another year as well. So that'll be 9 years they've been helping me out, which is just incredible. So definitely check out what they're up to. They're at 7im.co.uk. That's the number 7im.co.uk. And don't forget the Meaningful Money branded self-investment platform. If you're looking to begin investing or just to try something a little different, everything you need to know is at meaningfulmoney.tv/podcastinvest. meaningfulmoney.tv/podcastinvest. Go check it out. Okay, well, inevitably this is a fairly diverse Q&A. Okay, I'm sorry if your particular question didn't get answered. I tried to sort of sift through what's come in and identify the key themes and go from there. But remember, there's always the Meaningful Money Facebook group, which we just call the Memo Hub. It's at meaningfulmoney.tv/community if you want to join that. Well over 2,500 people in that group now, and it's a really helpful place. People ask questions all the time. Several questions a day getting asked and answered in the group. So definitely check it out, meaningfulmoney.tv/community. Not just me answering, importantly. In fact, it's definitely, I'm answering the minority of questions because there's some amazingly gifted and super helpful people in there. Okay, well, let's dive in then to the questions. Remember, there's a full transcript, any links and stuff that we're going to talk about there at the show notes, which is meaningfulmoney.tv/pp16. That's Planning with Purpose, episode 16. That's the name of this season. meaningfulmoney.tv/pp16. Let's answer some questions. Okay, this one is particularly pertinent. Should politics play any part in investment decision-making? So, when I wrote this was before the election. I'm actually recording this on Friday the 13th of December. So by now, we know that the result of the general election here in the UK was a massive, fair to say larger than expected, Conservative majority. But let's answer the question, should politics, and into that you can probably supplement any current affairs, should that play any part in investment decision making? And the short answer is no, okay? Whether it's politics, economics, like 20 years ago, those of you will remember the freaking millennium bug. The name of it went out of my mind for a minute there. That was fuss over nothing, but, caused a lot of people a lot of anxiety at the time. Anytime you consider using events which are outside of your control to determine investing decisions, it's madness, right? Now, like I say, we know what the outcome of the general election is, but let's say you waited to see what the outcome is. And here now, Friday the 13th of December, when I'm recording this, it turns out, say, to be a hung parliament. Who knew? Well, what might have happened if it was a hung parliament? Maybe a short-term decline in the pound, probably markets as a whole in the UK likely to fall. FTSE 100 would probably be okay because generally it does the inverse of the price of sterling, but that's a woeful oversimplification. But, it may even rise. So let's say markets have dropped a bit and you think that this is an opportunity to invest. Well, if you've held cash on your platform ready to push the button and place the trade this morning as soon as you knew the outcome of the election, Well, you'll trade into the market, right? So if you're buying ETFs, the money will land and it'll buy the funds pretty quickly because ETFs are constantly traded throughout the day. If, like most people, you're buying open-ended funds, search on the website if you don't fully understand the difference. But if you're buying open-ended funds, then if you place your trade on your platform before, say, 11 a.m., something like that, you will bag the fund price at the end of the day. If you miss that lunchtime deadline, it'll be at the end of the following day because funds, open-ended funds, are priced once a day. And an awful lot can happen, even just if you place your trade now and the price is bagged at the end of the day. That might be 5, 6, 7 hours of trading time, and you just get the price at the end of the day. Things move incredibly quickly these days. So trying to time things, like I'll wait and see what the outcome of an election is and then I will invest, you will always be behind the curve. Ultimately, making any investment decisions like this is going to be the toss of a coin. You'll either win or you'll lose. It's pretty binary. If you invest and hold, however, you will always win, given enough time. All right? Important caveat at the end. Markets always rise over time. So if you're invested, you will make money over time. Sometimes it takes a while, though, and the journey, as we know, many of us, can be pretty rocky. So if you're worried, if you are holding off investing money that you've got available because you're worried, you want to see how things pan out, I get it. Okay, it's easy for me to sort of pontificate here. It's not my hard-earned cash that you're talking about investing, it's yours. So if you are worried, then just hang on a bit until things settle down, should they ever settle down. Certainly don't lose sleep over an investment decision that you've made because you listen to some sort of Yorkshireman talking online, right? Just because I say you should invest and hold no matter what, this is your money, it's your life, and it's your lost sleep. But just remember, if you invest across the globe, as I suggest you do, and into different kinds of assets, shares mostly, but with bonds and property and gold and all that other stuff as well, really, the general election, the UK general election, is going to affect a fraction of your portfolio. The American stock market cares not a jot for the UK general election. Neither does Japan, China, and the Far East, any of these places. Really, Brexit or the UK election is largely a UK and European issue, much less so for the latter. So, multi-asset global investing gets around some of the issues that you might find by short-termism and current affairs investing. Please don't ever think you can win by timing the market. You're not Nostradamus, okay? And unless you are, you're going to get it wrong more times than you get it right. But you're just as likely to guess the outcome of a toss of a coin as you are to guess what markets might do in response to current affairs, right? You'll hold and buy the markets when they're cheaper, or they'll go up and you'll wish you've bought in earlier, right? Nobody knows what the outcome will be. The only eternal truth, get this in your head, folks, it's really important. The only eternal truth is that markets always rise, given enough time, okay? So don't try and time the markets. Don't let politics or economics or anything else affect your investment decision-making. Try to do it in the abstract. Second question, this was a bit of a recurring theme. It came up quite a few times. How should a couple plan? Bear in mind, we've been talking about planning with purpose. How should a couple plan where one of the couple has taken a step back for whatever reason, usually to raise a family? So I want to give this due attention because it's come up quite a bit. This is obviously a pretty common theme for many of us, right? One partner, usually the woman, takes time off or decreases hours fairly drastically for at least a short period of time to raise a family, right? Clearly, this is going to have a detrimental effect on her personal retirement provision. I hope you'll forgive me that I'm going to sort of, rather than confuse the issues, just assume for the purposes of answering this question that it is the lady taking time off and it will be her individual financial position that is compromised as a result. Now, she will get national insurance credit for state pension while she's receiving child benefit and not working, or if she's working part-time. I did a 5-Minute Friday very recently about how national insurance works. So if you're not sure how that works for accruing benefits to the state pension, definitely check that out. But if she is paying a proportion of her earnings, which are now reduced, of course, into a pension, obviously she's going to be worse off, paying less in. DB scheme, final salary scheme benefits, they're usually accrued pro rata. So if she's down to 2 days a week, she's going to get 2/5 of the amount of accrual into her DB scheme. Worse off there as well. chances are that non-pension saving and investing will go down too, because household income is usually reduced, right? So bear in mind, you probably have to rein in some other spending as well, perhaps, but generally, saving and investments are usually the first things that go. It's not to say they should be, they are usually the things that get squeezed when household income is reduced. I always say that if you wait until you afford to have kids, you'll never do it, right? So certainly don't let any of this stuff put you off. The way to navigate it, of course, is to try to plan where you can. I know it's not easy. There's lots of threads to hold together here. So ideally, try to quantify the impact where you can. So try to compare what would be pension accrual. How much would be paid into a pension? Let's just say it's DC, money purchase scheme. How much would be paid into a pension over, say, the next 5 years versus what would be paid into a pension over the next 5 years if she's only working part-time? All right, that should be a fairly straightforward sum to do. How much less will you save? And how much less will you have put away if you drop from saving 500 quid a month down to £100 a month for 3, 4, 5 years? Okay, should be able to see the impact. All right, it's not difficult maths actually. And then we need to ask whether you can make up for lost time afterwards, okay? Or do you push really hard with savings before you have kids to try to get ahead of the curve? Obviously, taking time off to raise a family or for whatever reason, even if it's like a mini retirement for a couple of years, like a sabbatical or something, it has financial impact. And we need to try and think of that ahead of time if we can. But what if you've already gone through this stage? A couple of people asked this question, were like, didn't really think this through, and now I find myself disadvantaged, for want of a better term, in my own retirement and long-term provision. How do we get back on track? Well, the first thing we need to understand is where we are now, right? It's the first element of all financial planning. We need to know where we are now. We need to know where A is before we can think about how to get to B, right? Listen back to the early episodes in this season, I think 2, 3, and 4, something like that, about planning, how to take stock of where you are, right? There is zero benefit to sort of lamenting the loss of wealth building time, right? There's lots of benefits to having kids as well. So let's look forward rather than looking back. Chances are, like most of us who decide really to get serious with this stuff, you are going to need to push things pretty hard and try to maximize your savings rate. Look to squeeze what you can from budget. Live for today by all means, but do so intentionally, as I always say. Maybe think about how you can find an extra £50, 100, £150 a month, more than maybe you think to save. Be aggressive with it, really important. I would probably focus, if I was in a couple as well, on accruing wealth to the partner that has sacrificed to raise the kids, okay? I'm totally doing that for Jo. Now we're piling money into her pension so that she's got decent provision in her own name, okay? There's not much you can do as far as workplace pensions, because usually, you can increase your own personal savings into it, of course, but probably you can't do much about your employer's match. That will probably be capped. But obviously, any personal savings can be directed to the partner that's been disadvantaged for at least for a while. So just to try and even things up and catch her or him up a little bit. It might be that it's not easy to think big picture. You've got a lot going on, particularly if you've got young kids. So go easy on yourself and try to determine what you can do now and then revisit in a few months. Try and dial it up regularly, okay? Rather than thinking, oh my gosh, I've got to find another 600 quid a month to save. Start with 150 and then see if you can nudge it up to 175 and then 220 and just try to nudge it up, right? It's a lot more palatable and a lot easier. So like all financial planning, it starts with knowing where you are now, thinking about what the impact might be or has been of you taking that time out, and then just trying to redress the balance. Every circumstance is different though. If you've got one partner that's earning massive money and one that isn't, clearly pension provision is going to be hugely weighted in favor of the high earner. It's just inevitable. So do what you can to even things up. I think that's important. Certainly that's what I'm doing in my house. Third question, should you ever sell at a loss? Should you ever sell investments at a loss? Now, it was Leo that asked this question. Hi, Leo. Good to see you in Birmingham a few weeks ago. For context, he asked specifically, if you have an investment that went down and seems to stay down, right, should you ever sell it? Is there ever a point where you think, I've had enough, I'm just going to get rid of it? I think if you've got an investment where this is the case, it's likely to have been a very focused investment, maybe a single company share, okay? Hands up Lloyd's shareholders, okay? And many of the bank shareholders actually, still just a fraction of what they were worth 15 years ago. Maybe a single sector fund. I've had clients that invested in technology funds back in 99 and 2000, way before my time, I have to say, and then who saw that fund drop by 90% in the tech market crash of 2000 to 2003. Eventually, they got fed up of waiting it to come back, right, to the purchase price and just cut their losses, right? Another argument in favor of core and satellite investing. Anything niche or focused like this should be a satellite, a small amount by value of your total investments. Remember, a 90% drop in value, like some of my clients in these tech funds, requires a 1,000% return to get back to parity. Okay? So, you're going to be waiting a while, and it may never happen. So I do think there are occasions where it makes sense to cut and run. If you sell and buy something else, and then, that investment that you had and you've been waiting on for ages, that subsequently surges, you're going to be cursing me, right? I don't reckon that'll happen, though. If something is stubbornly and significantly below the price you paid for it for a long time, eventually you're going to want that money doing something for you. So just sell out when it feels right. But don't be too hasty. Try to be patient. If it's a wildly volatile holding, like maybe a gold ETF or something which can quite easily rise and fall 30% in a few days, chances are the price will rise eventually, all right? But if it's a kind of a faddy share, a tip you got from a mate down the pub, just give yourself a slap on the wrist for investing like an idiot. Understand that you understand more now. Resolve to learn the lesson of your mistake and get the money working it back into something decent. Put it into some, nice aggressive global equity fund, something like that. 100% shares. It'll come back eventually. So, yes, Leo, I do think there are times when it's worth just calling it a day. It's a little bit subjective, though, and generally only for the sort of niche-y type stuff where you think, that's never going to come back. So just, you can cut your losses at that point. Another hot topic. Should I fix my mortgage? So this has come up quite a bit. So if you're about to remortgage, do you go for a 5-year fix or even longer if possible? What might interest rates do from here? Let me just get my crystal ball a minute. Should you wait for the next meeting of the Monetary Policy Committee now that we've had an election? Of course, they're entirely independent. Should you wait till that to see what's going on? Mortgage rates have been low for ages now, ages and ages, well over 10 years. And there are some very good fixed rate mortgages around. For what it's worth, I fixed mine for 5 years 18 months ago now. My particular sort of tactic with mortgages is to fix for 5 years and every 5 years reduce by term by another 5. Okay, so when I remortgaged this time, it was for a 15-year term. And at the end of it, of course, it's the end of a 5-year fix. I'll only have 10 years left, but I will remortgage for 5, right? And thereby I'm forcibly overpaying, essentially, right? So my plan is to be mortgage free by 50, and that's how that's going to work. 52, actually, worst case scenario. So I use kind of the fixed rate thing to kind of force overpayments, right? Because you're effectively, by reducing your term each time, you're raising your minimum payment. Don't do that if you want some flexibility, right? Just decide you're going to overpay instead and do it voluntarily, and you can always turn that off if you need to. So consider your own circumstances. If you're worried about fixing for a long time, then go for a shorter one. You can short for 2 years, fix for 2 years rather, or 3. I really, generally speaking, I don't overthink this stuff. I sometimes wonder if I'm a little bit too chilled about this. Clearly it causes a lot of people some angst, but it really doesn't cause me that. Maybe that's a function of DNA or financial situation or whatever. But in the grand scheme of things, whether you fix for 2 years or 3 or 5, I don't think it's going to make a massive difference. Usually there are fees to pay every time you fix, so by doing it for 5 years, you're at least not going to incur any more mortgage costs for 5 years. I do try to overpay within the limits of the fix. Sometimes when you fix, you've got limits. Well, usually when you fix, you've got limits as to how much you can overpay. But if there's any excess that I can't overpay, I'll just collect it in a separate account and then take it off when I come to remortgage. My good mate Damien Fay and the team there at Money to the Masses, they've got a really good piece on his site about interest rates, and he updates it regularly as things change, as you get a new committee meeting or whatever. So I'll link that in the notes because it's way better than anything that I could write. It's absolutely in Damien's sweet spot. It's a superb piece of writing. So I'll link that in the notes. MeaningfulMoney.tv/pp16. All the links are there. Okay, I think this is the last one. Yeah, number 5. If it looks like I'll breach the lifetime allowance, should I keep contributing to my pension? What a belter of a question this is. So let's just remind ourselves about the lifetime allowance. It's currently 1.055 million. That's the maximum you can have in a pension fund. If you breach that, then at various points, your total pension provision is tested against that limit. And if you breach it, there is a tax charge called a lifetime allowance charge. So I come across this question a lot, right? When I'm planning for clients, very often we're looking 10, 20, 30 years ahead. And, you know, what you often find is that if you're projecting growth in pension funds over a period, you see this big spike at age 75. That's one of the points at which your pension provision is tested against the LTA. So, you know, I think we need to be aware of it. Now, if you do breach it, the tax charge, by the way, is 25% if the scheme pays, if the pension fund pays the tax for you. If you take the excess out and put it in your bank account, you'll have a 55% tax bill, which is meaty, shall we say. So most folks listening to this season and the ones that have been asking this question, they're in the building wealth stage, right? They really are thinking that they might breach the lifetime allowance before they come to take benefits. Maybe they're 10, 15 years away from retirement, and they can see the trajectory. If they keep contributing at the rate they are, and if the pension keeps growing at the rate it is, then, you know, they can see that they might breach the LTA one day. So should they stop, right? You know, should you stop if you're in this position? Now, my gut feeling on this, I'm fairly sanguine about the LTA, okay? Again, don't know why, just am. Deal with it a lot here at Jackson's, of course. Nowhere near that level in my own personal pension. But my gut feeling is that I would continue to contribute. I would get the tax relief until you are nearly at the limit. So rather than stop now, because you foresee in 20 years' time, you are going to hit lifetime allowance, I think that's a bit daft, really. I would push it a long way further yet, right? I would continue to contribute until you're nearly at the limit. Then if you go over after that point, it's only the growth on the fund that takes you over, rather than your own money going in only to be taxed subsequently. We had a client who was in his early 40s. We projected that at his current contribution rate and with a fairly conservative assumed growth rate, he would breach the LTA before he retired. We counselled him not to stop contributing because the tax relief was really useful. He had a limited company. Company was paying in 40 grand a year for him, and, you know, it was better than corporation tax, so he carried on. A good rule of thumb, obviously, when you're planning, is to work within the rules and the legislation in place right now. You should always, of course, have a mind to the future, but the last thing you would want to do, for example, is not to benefit from income tax in the short term on your pension contribution, income tax relief rather, on your pension contributions, because you're worried about an LTA charge down the line, only to get down the line and you find that the LTA has been abolished by some future Chancellor of the Exchequer. So I would let growth pay your LTA charge in the future and keep contributing for the most part. Remember, each case is different. Definitely seek advice on this. Of all the times to seek good financial planning advice, this is a good point to do it, okay? If this is likely to be an issue for you, I think it's worth a couple of grand or more to a decent financial planner if it saves you tens or hundreds of thousands in the future. I've done planning for folks, and depending on when we take benefits from their pensions, we've saved them hundreds of thousands of pounds in lifetime allowance charge, right? So it can just be down to a vesting strategy when you get to retirement. So if that's 20 years away, don't worry about it, okay? Keep going. Get the benefits now rather than worry about a charge down the line, which may not even happen. Okay, so that's it. Just 5 sort of fairly high-level questions, but all of those questions have been asked by multiple people, so I hope that it's been helpful. And that's it for another season, people. Amazing. So here's what's going to be happening in the next few weeks. So in January, I'm going to be presenting 5 in between episodes for you. There are 5 Wednesdays in January, a couple with me ringing in the new year and the new decade, of course. And then there's going to be 3 interviews, including one with the man, the legend, J.L. Collins, author of the greatest personal finance book ever written, The Simple Path to Wealth. J.L. Collins will be on the show on the 17th of January. People are asking me in the Facebook group already when this is coming out because I trailed the fact that I was going to be interviewing him and asked for questions. So 17th of January, folks, be patient. Then we're going to kick off season 17. I've got to get my seasons right. What are we on? This is season 15. Sorry, season 16 we're going to be kicking off in February. Get back to my script point. There we go. On the first Wednesday in February, we're going to be talking about the run-in to retirement, FI, the sort of home stretch, if you like. You could even call it the final approach, like a jet airliner making its final approach into the home airport. We're going to talk about what you need to know and what you need to do, of course, to prepare for retirement in the best way possible. And that season 16, will take us all the way to Easter, amazingly. 5 Minute Friday is going to continue. In the new year also, I'll be launching the foundations phase of Meaningful Academy to the wider public, right? We've done the founders launch. All the content is in there. I've had a load of great feedback. Everything's in place to do a public launch. So first couple of weeks in January, that'll be being pushed, okay? So get on the list, meaningfulacademy.com, if you're interested in that. The foundations phase is all the stuff when you're getting started on your financial journey. Debt elimination, how to set a budget and a spending plan, the basics of protection, the basics of saving, investing, all that good stuff, right? Mindset and some good content in there. Okay, so if you are interested in starting 2020 off on the right foot, then the Academy is the place to go. MeaningfulAcademy.com, get your name on the list there. There's going to be special discounts for podcast listeners on there as well, people on the list. So you'll know about the launch before anybody else. If you're interested, name on the email list, MeaningfulAcademy.com. Scroll down, there's a little form at the bottom. Phew, lots going on, folks. Right, review. The last review of 2019. It tells you something that I'm several months behind reading these reviews, so you've been very generous in leaving me reviews all year. Now I believe over 900 reviews, which is incredible. So this is from Mr. Geddes, who says, I wish I'd found this earlier. Pete has such a wealth of knowledge that he clearly communicates every week in a simple and honest way. Coming across as knowledgeable but never arrogant, this straight-talking expert in his field gives so much knowledge for free to get any young investor started. Having paid into my pension for 7 years, finally decided to look at the value after just leaving it alone for years, was pleasantly surprised how the wealth has built up over time from simple, consistent investment. Having listened to the podcast for the last 4 months, I've finally taken action by starting a multi-asset tracker fund that my future self will be very grateful for. Thank you, Pete, and keep up the good work. Mr. Geddes, thank you very much. Well done for taking action. Just about being intentional, isn't it? Take a look at the pension, make sure it's invested aggressively because you've got a long time, and setting up separate investments as well. So well done, Mr. Geddes, for taking action. Thank you for leaving a review as well. And if you want to leave a review, meaningfulmoney.tv/iTunes. If you are of an Apple persuasion, I got accused of making Android users feel like second-class citizens. Absolutely not. Wherever you are listening to this show, please do leave a review if you can. Okay, I understand if you can't, but it really does help. So, folks, that's it, incredibly, for 2019. They say that time goes quicker when you're getting old, right? I'm 44, and I've never experienced a year go so fast as this one. It seems like 2 minutes ago it was September, and now here we are at the end of December. Later on this afternoon, after I record this, I'm going to be putting my Christmas tree up. There you go. That's the time of year. So it just remains for me to wish you all happy Christmas. Thank you for another year of support of Meaningful Money in 2019 and everything that I'm trying to achieve here. Guess what, though? 2020 is going to be a big year because in April, I celebrate 10 years of the Meaningful Money project. 10 years since I took a tiny little £100 flip cam down onto the prom in Penzance and talked to it for 2.5-3 minutes and told it what I was going to do. Had I known back then that this would become a multi-million download podcast with well over 100,000 downloads a month now, thousands of people in a Facebook group, everything that this project has become, I don't know that I would have believed you. But anyway, I'll be even more gushing in April, but just wanted to say thank you for another year of amazing support for everybody that listens. I truly, truly appreciate it, and I'm deeply humbled by it. Love all your comments and your emails. Please keep them coming. I hope that you have a lovely time over the next couple of weeks with the people that you care about most. And I'll see you raring to go. As it happens, the next podcast is on the 1st of January. It's a Wednesday, which is just perfect. And that is it, folks, for 2020. I hope that this season's been helpful. Hope that today's show answered some questions for you if you've left them. So if I missed anything, as usual, if you've got any questions on today's show, leave them at the show notes, meaningfulmoney.tv/pp60. Thank you so much for listening and for watching. I'll see you next time. Cheers.